Hello, and welcome to our presentation of our overall strategic management project. Our strategic management project reviewed the company Nike. The following was done by Alex Harris, Brady Gashler, Brett Schwartz, and Robert Haston. First, we're going to the background information. We had to do an overview of who Nike was, what market they competed in, their overall market cap, their amount of employees, and many other things that pertain to the company specifically to understand really the scope of the business. They were a running shoe company that was started in Beaverton, Oregon, and it really transformed into the face of the sports apparel industry. Coming up at the same time is titles like Adidas that we'll talk about later on in our overall environmental and industry environment analysis. Nike prioritizes product differentiation. They do this with brand, quality, and aesthetic through notoriety and innovation and design, which we'll get into in more detail later on when we talk about their overall business strategy and our recommendations on how they should continue well into the future. Nike is a global company with a large network of distributors and suppliers, and it uses its size to gain efficiency through economies of scale. You'll see this in their overall financial performance and other statistics later on in the slide deck. For the general external environment, we looked at a couple of things like the Pastel framework and broke down the sociocultural and other factors that impacted or at least make up the Pastel framework. Nike's main competitors are, as mentioned before, Adidas, Under Armour, Puma, and New Balance. They are the primary industry players in this market, and we'll actually go into an overall stock portfolio review of these four companies and how they play into Nike's overall strategy moving into the future. There are other things within the general environment for Nike, things like consumer spending, which is the sociocultural, things like counterfeits, trademarks, and copyrights that affect brand. So going into more of the overall industry environment, we looked at things like the Nike's 5 Forces analysis breakdown. We looked at their business level decisions and strategic objectives, competition within sports apparel industry for Nike, along with overall potential threats, and then business level decisions and strategic objectives, and even their org structure. We found things like there was a lot of not only supplier power within the 5 Forces analysis, but also buyer power. And this allowed us to understand how Nike mitigates risk within its overall market. And it knows the ins and outs of how it should make business level decisions based off the 5 Forces within its environment and use its strategic objectives to align with its overall competitive strategy within the sports apparel industry. Looking more into the industry environment from a statistical perspective, focusing on the top left chart, this bar chart really represents the overall market share from a percentage basis. You can see that Nike is the industry leader, holding over 40% year over year from 2019 to 2022. Closely behind them is Adidas, as they both rose to fame in the 70s at the origin of Nike. And then other competitors, which we mentioned before, like Puma and Under Armour, also fit in these categories, but only have 5 to 10% of total market share. Looking at the top right chart, looking at your EBITDA, Nike really is pretty standard across the board as far as the industry goes. You'll see that they compete well against Adidas and Puma year over year, with an industry leader being Lululemon, which is something that Nike has had lawsuits with, as we found out in our overall investigation, for using products similar to, or even material similar to Nike, taking some of their innovation, which is where all of that copyright, trademark, and other legal items come into play. Overall, though, Nike competes across the industry and even beats some other competitors like ASICS and Skechers. The percentage of cost to revenue. This is an interesting one. Is Nike does have a pretty high percentage of cost to revenue. They obviously is reflected in the top right, as these two statistics relate to each other. The percentage of cost to revenue for Nike being a little bit over 50%. That is obviously reflected in their profit margins and reflected in their overall stock share price and several other things that we'll review here soon. But from a competitive analysis perspective, there is a lot of market overlap. It is a very competitive market, and especially with Nike being the overall, or at least the largest player in the sports apparel market, having the largest market share, it is easy for competitors to come in and take that market share if they don't continue to lean on their innovation and other items that set Nike apart. Nike's resources and capabilities, having a global footprint, and a strong R&D segment. Nike does have a leg up, having years of research, customer research in the industry, being innovative and integrating technology both into their product and into their product offering, and how their customers even purchase and buy and interact with their product is apparent in Nike's overall business offering. Competition success and current standing in sports apparel market, we've reviewed this. They have the largest market share and will continue to have it as they continue to innovate and lean into their brand. Looking at the competitive analysis of stock portfolios, overall, you can see some heavy trends for the market in general. This is a 2021 to 2023 analysis with some larger spikes in the 21 and 22 category for several of the competitors in the market due to the shift to e-commerce and the way that these individuals sold their products, especially as it related to the retail industry being shut down due to COVID. Overall, everything stayed relatively competitive with a pretty standard growth rate, and Nike being one of the only positive growth rates in the year of 2023, which reflects good for their stock, and it's something that we would obviously advise to invest in. Now, looking at Nike's balanced scorecard, there are several things here as we break down a scorecard. You have things like objectives, goals, indicators, and initiatives from several different perspectives. From a financial perspective, you have objectives in increasing revenue and then increasing post-COVID product sales. Revenue being in dollars, product being the units. Increasing Nike stock to $120 a share, and then obviously increasing Nike's yearly revenue by 5%. Things that would indicate this are financial statements and stock prices, and then initiatives would be implement additional KPIs to value financial success. We use balanced scorecards to determine Nike's overall strategy moving forward, to make an evaluation of not only what we were doing, objectives, but where we were going, how we were going to get there, and how we were going to manage it along the way. So looking at things like the customer perspective, improve experience and customer satisfaction, access new customers from additional outlets, channels, and platforms, and improvements to the Nike's website and overall digital experience. This is leaning into that overall innovation side of the business. The goals really would be, again, to increase Nike's yearly footwear market share by 3%, encroaching into the business of Adidas and Puma and Under Armour. New products within the sports apparel market, and increasing, obviously, a social media presence as we lean into a more and more social media governed market. We'd have several initiatives like improving perks and reward programs, launching a new improved Nike promo campaigns, and then looking at an internal process perspective, improving things like the conveniency of shopping and shipping speed, new products, and improve Nike's brand awareness, which will be critical to their overall growth. Brand is a very heavy thing for Nike, as we learned through our overall competitive analysis. The goal is really improve processing and average standard ship time for online products. Convenience actually improves brand. Things that would indicate this are obviously customer reviews, satisfaction ratings, customer surveys, new product sales. Then initiatives would obviously be to develop a pretty robust supply chain to support this. Learning and growth perspective. This would be critical. Employee satisfaction, skills and abilities, research and development, line manufacturing, and innovative design. All things that said, like Phil Knight, the Nike founder, said, was really, we're in the people business. We just create great products. To maintain that and maintain their research and development, it'll be critical to lean into learning and growth. Obviously, indicating things like employee satisfaction and turnover rates, price changes and price improvements, and then new product creation. There'll be several initiatives in place for this. Final analysis and recommendations. Nike has long been a titan of the industry. We feel they will continue to be so based on innovation and brand loyalty, leaning heavily into the innovation through the empowerment of employees, and then establishing brand loyalty through the relationships they build with their athletes and with the consumer. Opportunities include continuing to expand to even more markets and increasing efficiencies, maybe even a reduction of SKUs, helping them target their specialty items and reach broader markets. Nike can also continue to retain loyal employees by furthering the customer satisfaction and employee empowerment within their industry and their organization. This is what our group has learned and digested through this strategic management process for the last 6 weeks. Everything from the 5 forces model, stock analysis, the PESTEL model, and understanding not only the business level decisions of a business, but the organizational makeup, strategic objectives, and how to develop a balanced scorecard for overall business success. We thank you for taking the time today, and we appreciate this overall project. It's a great learning lesson. It's something that we will take into our future careers.